Benjamin Netanyahu says with the goodwill of both sides, there can be some kind of resolution. On the surface, this sounds fantastic. What is really going on? Is he kicking the can down the road?
Yes. I don't know that it's necessarily the agreement that we should be waiting for, Benita, but again, reading between the lines, it was clear to everyone as you listened to the Prime Minister earlier today before the cabinet meeting. He spoke very quickly about the judicial overhaul. We heard just about all of it, and then very quickly moved on to other subjects. He seems clearly to be trying to put the focus elsewhere. Doesn't want to abandon the judicial overhaul willy-nilly. Obviously, that wouldn't look very good to his political base, but he does clearly seem to want some kind of ladder down the tree, even if it is a ladder that he needs to climb down slowly, lest he fall down the tree, which he obviously doesn't want to do, or fall down from the tree, which he obviously doesn't want to do. But this clearly does seem to be a prime minister who wants to move on, who wants to maybe give achievements to his base and deliver those, but maybe on other issues instead of the judicial overhaul, while not completely abandoning it, right? Or not being seen as completely abandoning it. But the talks to the president's residence, Benita, seem to be the perfect ladder for Netanyahu. Let those talks continue endlessly, right? It gives the illusion of movement potentially being made or this issue being kept alive, while in fact the prime minister is moving on to other issues which are very pressing. There's a deadline to pass a state budget or his government falls, for example, less than a month from now, on May 29th.
Talk to us about exactly that, the ructions within the Likud party. As you say, he's trying to move on to other issues, but there are contentious debates about some of the next steps down the line for the Likud party itself.
Right, and this and on other issues. Obviously, there is Yariv Levin, the justice minister, and there are others inside the party and in other parts of the coalition who are the real diehards, who are the real ideologues, who really support this from the heart, or are opportunists and support this for other reasons, and for whom this is really a strong legislative and policy priority. I think Netanyahu would probably want to try to wear them down. Also, given the poll numbers and the drop of the Likud party and the coalition in general, but more so the Likud party itself, if you look at most polls, Netanyahu, I think, has a political incentive, a more immediate political incentive to try to move on, as well as what we've been talking about for months, that this judicial overhaul to be passed would kill Israel's economy and kill Israel's society. That's obviously not in anyone's interest, including Netanyahu's. He seems to have internalized that full well, and again wants to try to elegantly and slowly try to move on, try to again continue to put forward right-wing priorities and priorities that are important to his base and to his coalition partners, just not this one. Things that are less controversial and less consequential, but still potentially meaningful, and that can help him try to have some kind of comeback and rebound in the polls, which we are starting to see.
This Thursday will be National Equality Day, according to protesters. We know for 17 weeks there have been weekly protests over the judicial overhaul plans. Late last week on Thursday night, there was a massive demonstration in Jerusalem in support of the plans. Is this part of the new normal for the Israeli scenario, that we are just going to get used to more and more demonstrations until there is some kind of change or concrete outcome out of what we are seeing right now in Jerusalem?
Well, it's hard to bet against this protest movement, Benita, given how impressive it is, the most impressive and important protest movement in Israel's history that has already had enormous consequences, and in the medium to long term could continue to have enormous consequences. But you still have to ask, how long can this momentum be kept up, right? We've had the 17th week of massive protests, over 200,000 people out in the streets. Again, viewers at home, remember, this is a country of only 9 million people, or 10 million people. So 200,000 people coming out. Do the math in your own country about what that means as a percentage of the population, right? And this is for the 17th week straight, as well as those midweek demonstrations potentially set to start. And of course, as well as the right-wing demonstration that we saw on Thursday night. Again, it's hard to bet against this protest movement, but one can't stop but wondering whether at some point it starts to begin to run out of steam. Is this a protest movement that has an endless kind of momentum, or is it too subject to the laws of political physics? And could it too at some point start to come to an end for one reason or another, but still be able to ignite at a moment's notice if the policy decisions start to move another way? Again, I think that's something that Benjamin Netanyahu understands full well.
And watching all those developments as they happen, as always, our senior diplomatic correspondent Owen Alderman, thank you as always.